New York Times article reported that a survey conducted in 2014 included 36,000 adults, with 3.66% of them being regular users of e-cigarettes. Because e-cigarette use is relatively new, there is a need to obtain today's usage rate. How many adults must be surveyed now if a confidence level of 95% and a margin of error of 1.5 percentage points are wanted? We're going to complete parts A through C below. For part A, it says, assume that nothing is known about the rate of e-cigarette usage among adults. Okay, if nothing is previously known, we would have to use this following formula, where we take the critical z-value squared times 0.25 and divide it by the margin of error squared. Okay, so in our problem, first thing that we know is the margin of error, which is 1.5 percentage points. Okay, so we're going to rewrite that as a decimal to be 0.015. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to find that critical z-value. Okay, so in order to find that critical z-value, we first need to figure out what is the confidence level. Well, the confidence level is 95%. Okay, so in 95%, we're going to say that alpha is going to be 1 minus that 95%. So that's 1 minus 0.95. Which then gives us 0.05. Okay, and now we're going to take alpha and then divide that by 2. So we're going to take that 0.05, divide that by 2 to give us 0.025. So that 0.025 is the area that's to the right of the critical value that we're looking for. So the critical value down here is going to be z with the area to the right to be 0.025. So this is 0.025. And we want to find the probability, since it's the area to the right, of when that z critical value is greater than or equal to what value that's going to give us an area of 0.0250. So again, this is the area that we're shading in. So now what we want to do is we can use StatCrunch to determine that. So we're going to go to StatCrunch. Okay, and then we're going to go to Stat, go to Calculators, and then scroll all the way down to where it says Normal. Okay, we want to make sure that we have the area to the right, so we want to point the inequality to the right. We're going to put in the area of 0.0250. Press enter and then round our critical value to 2 decimal places, and we get 1.96. So therefore that critical value is 1.96, and now we have the information to put in to find our sample size. So let's plug in the information to find our sample size. We know that we found the critical value to be 1.96. We're going to square that, and then we're going to multiply it by 0.25. And then divide it by the margin of error, and we're going to square that margin of error. The margin of error is 0.15, and then square that. So now let's go ahead and put in our value. So parentheses 1.96 squared, and then multiplying that by 0.25. That gives us the numerator. Now let's divide it by the margin of error squared. So divide that by parentheses 0.015 parentheses squared, and then that gives us 4268.4. Now recall that we need to round this up, so we're going to round it up to get 4269 as our sample size. So we get 4269. Let's check our answer, and that is our result. Now it says use the results from the 2014 survey. Well, the 2014 survey said that it was 3.66% of them being regular users of e-cigarettes. So that represents our point estimate, 3.66%. So let's go ahead and solve that. Okay, so here we know that our formula is, when the given point estimate is known, is the following. It's the critical value squared times the point estimate times the complement of the point estimate over the margin of error squared. Now, from the previous step, we know that the margin of error is 0.015. We also determined that the critical z value was 1.96. Now, the point estimate is 3.66%, but we want to change that to a decimal, so that's going to be 0.0366. Now we need to find the complement of that. The complement of that is taking 1 minus 0.0366. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to take 1 and then subtract 0.0366, and that gives us 0.9634. So 0.9634. Now we can plug everything into our formula. So it's going to be the critical value squared, so we know the critical value is 1.96 squared, times the point estimate, which is 0.0366, times the complement of that point estimate, which is 0.9634, and then divide that by the margin of error, 0.015 squared. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have parentheses 1.96 squared times 0.0366 times 0.9634, and that gives us the numerator. And now we're going to divide it by the margin of error squared, so divide it by parentheses 0.015 squared, and that gives us 602.0289169. Now remember, we need to round up when it comes to the sample size, so we're going to round up to 603. So let's go ahead and put our result in, 603, and check our answer, and there is our result. Now the next question says, does the use of the result from the 2014 survey have much of an effect on the sample size? Well, you can see here, when we use the results from the 2014, it goes from the sample size of 4,269 to 603. So it definitely does have an effect. Okay, now the next thing is that, does it slightly increase or does it dramatically reduce? Well, it dramatically reduces it. So we would say that yes, using the result from a 2014 survey dramatically reduces the sample size. So our answer is going to be D.